If Alan Turing had never existed, the world you are living in right now would be fundamentally different. Not slightly different. Not cosmetically altered, but structurally unrecognizable. No modern computers as we know them. No smartphones. No artificial intelligence. No digital security. No internet economy. And yet, for most of his life, Alan Turing was treated not as a hero, but as a problem. He helped win the most destructive war in human history. He shortened World War II by years. He saved an estimated 14 million lives. He laid the mathematical foundations for every computer that would come after him. And when the war ended, his country thanked him by prosecuting him, humiliating him, chemically castrating him, and ultimately destroying him. Alan Turing did not die in glory. He died in silence. To understand how this happened, you have to understand who Alan Turing really was. Not as a myth, not as a tragic symbol, but as a human being whose mind operated several steps ahead of his own century. This is not just the story of a genius. It is the story of a civilization that failed to recognize one. Alan Matheson Turing was born on June 23, 1912, in London, at a time when the world still ran on steam engines, handwritten letters, and rigid social rules. From the very beginning, Turing seemed out of sync with his surroundings. He struggled with social conventions, disliked small talk, and showed little interest in fitting in. But behind that awkward exterior was a mind that did not simply learn information, it reconstructed reality. As a child, Turing displayed an unusual relationship with knowledge. He was not interested in memorizing facts the way other students were. Instead, he wanted to understand why things worked. When faced with a rule, his instinct was not to accept it, but to dismantle it logically and rebuild it from first principles. This habit would later define his entire career. By his teenage years, Turing was already teaching himself advanced mathematics far beyond the school curriculum. He found beauty not in poetry or art, but in patterns, symbols, and abstract structures. Numbers to him were not cold. They were alive. One of the most formative experiences of Turing's youth was his friendship with Christopher Morcom, a brilliant classmate who shared his intellectual curiosity. For the first time, Turing felt truly understood. Morcom encouraged his scientific thinking and gave him emotional grounding. When Morcom suddenly died from complications related to tuberculosis, Turing was devastated. This loss profoundly shaped Turing's worldview. Instead of turning to religion for comfort, he turned deeper into science. He became obsessed with understanding the nature of mind, matter, and consciousness. If the universe could take away someone so intelligent, so promising, then perhaps intelligence itself needed to be understood, preserved, and replicated. This emotional trauma planted the seed for one of the most radical ideas in human history, that thinking itself could be mechanized. In the 1930s, when Turing entered the University of Cambridge, the academic world was wrestling with a fundamental question. What are the limits of mathematics? Can every mathematical truth be proven? Can logic explain everything? Most mathematicians believed these were abstract philosophical debates with no practical consequences. Turing disagreed. In 1936, at just 24 years old, Turing published a paper that would quietly revolutionize civilization. In it, he described a hypothetical device, later called the Turing machine. It was not a physical machine, but a conceptual one, an imaginary device capable of reading symbols, following rules, and manipulating information step by step. What Turing proved was astonishing. He showed that any computation, no matter how complex, could be broken down into a series of simple, mechanical steps. More importantly, he showed that a single machine could perform any computation as long as it was given the correct instructions. This idea became the foundation of the modern computer. At the time, almost no one realized its importance. There were no headlines, no standing ovations, no sense that history had just shifted. Even Turing himself likely did not grasp how far-reaching his idea would become. But from that moment on, the future of intelligence, both human and artificial, was irrevocably changed. Then came World War II. When Nazi Germany began encrypting its military communications using the Enigma machine, the Allies faced a catastrophic problem. Enigma generated millions of possible encryption settings every day. Breaking a single message by hand could take longer than the war itself. Without breaking Enigma, the Allies were blind. This is where Alan Turing entered history, not as a theorist, but as a weapon. At Bletchley Park, Britain's top-secret code-breaking facility, Turing became the intellectual engine behind the effort to crack Enigma. He designed electromechanical machines called bombs that could rapidly test encryption possibilities at speeds no human could match. But Turing's contribution was not merely technical, it was conceptual. He understood that the key to defeating Enigma was not brute force, but understanding the behavior of the machine and the humans who used it. He exploited operator habits, procedural laziness, and predictable patterns. He treated cryptography as a psychological system as much as a mathematical one. Thanks largely to Turing's work, Allied forces gained access to Nazi communications across Europe. They knew where submarines were hiding. They knew when attacks were coming. They knew how to mislead the enemy without revealing that Enigma had been broken. The war was shortened by at least 2 years. Millions lived because Alan Turing thought differently. And yet, everything about this achievement was classified. The world never knew. When the war ended, Britain dismantled Bletchley Park. The machines were destroyed, the files were sealed. Turing was ordered never to speak of what he had done. Instead of being celebrated, he was reassigned to quieter academic work. He moved on to a new obsession: artificial intelligence. In 1950, Turing asked a question so strange, so ahead of its time, that many people laughed at it. Can machines think? To make the question practical, he proposed what is now known as the Turing test. If a machine could converse with a human so convincingly that the human could not tell the difference, then the machine should be considered intelligent. This was not science fiction. It was a blueprint. Turing was not asking whether machines could imitate intelligence. He was asking whether intelligence itself was something that could emerge from rules, symbols, and learning. Decades before modern AI, he had already seen its philosophical implications. And once again, the world did not listen. This would be Alan Turing's pattern. He would change everything, and no one would notice until it was too late. After the war, Alan Turing returned to a country at peace, but he himself was entering the most dangerous period of his life. On paper, Turing was one of Britain's most valuable minds. In reality, he was deeply misunderstood. He did not behave like a traditional academic. He dressed carelessly, spoke bluntly, and showed little respect for hierarchy. He was uninterested in social performance and indifferent to authority. In a society that valued conformity and restraint, Turing stood out, and not in a way that earned protection. What made Turing exceptional was also what isolated him. He thought in systems, not sentiments. When asked a question, he did not respond with what was expected. He responded with what was logically true. This made conversations uncomfortable. He corrected people openly. He questioned assumptions that others considered sacred. Many colleagues admired his brilliance, but few truly liked him. Turing did not know how to be politically careful, and in post-war Britain, that mattered more than intelligence. In 1945, Turing joined the National Physical Laboratory, where he designed one of the earliest detailed plans for a stored program computer. This design, known as the automatic computing engine, was decades ahead of what technology at the time could easily support. Once again, Turing was thinking too far into the future. The institution moved slowly. Committees debated endlessly. Administrators hesitated. Turing, frustrated by bureaucracy, eventually left. His ideas were partially implemented by others, but without the urgency or clarity he had envisioned. History would later recognize that Turing had effectively sketched the architecture of modern computing before most people even understood what a computer was. But recognition did not pay the emotional cost. Turing then moved to the University of Manchester, where he worked on software for one of the first operational computers. Unlike many mathematicians, he did not see computers merely as calculators. He saw them as universal machines capable of simulating any process, including learning, growth, and even thought. This led him to another radical idea: machine intelligence that evolves. Long before neural networks or genetic algorithms, Turing speculated that instead of programming intelligence directly, one could create a system that learns through experience, much like a child. He spoke of machines that could modify their own instructions, develop strategies, and even make mistakes. These ideas were unsettling. To many, Turing's work felt like a threat to human uniqueness. The suggestion that thought itself could be reduced to computation challenged religious beliefs, philosophical traditions, and moral hierarchies. People were not ready. And once again, Turing stood alone. But the greatest danger to Alan Turing was not intellectual rejection, it was the law. In 1952, Turing reported a burglary at his home. During the investigation, he openly admitted to having a sexual relationship with another man. In today's world, this would mean nothing. In Britain at the time, it meant criminal prosecution. Homosexuality was illegal. There was no secrecy, no attempt to hide. Turing believed in honesty. He assumed that his contributions to the country would matter. He assumed reason would prevail. It did not. The state charged him with gross indecency. The man who had helped defeat Nazi Germany was now treated as a threat to public morality. Turing was given a choice: prison or chemical castration. He chose chemical castration. For an entire year, Turing was forced to undergo hormone treatments designed to suppress his libido. The physical effects were devastating. He experienced weight gain, fatigue, emotional instability, and the growth of breast tissue. The psychological impact was even worse. The treatments stripped him of dignity. More importantly, they stripped him of focus. For someone whose mind was his entire identity, the disruption was unbearable. The punishment did not end there. Turing's security clearance was revoked. He was banned from cryptographic work. He was now considered a potential risk, despite the fact that he had already given everything to his country. The message was clear. His mind was valuable only as long as his personal life remained invisible. This betrayal cut deeply. Turing did not write angry manifestos. He did not protest publicly. He retreated inward. Friends noticed changes in his behavior. He became more withdrawn, more isolated. The world that had never fully accepted him was now actively rejecting him. And yet, even during this period, Turing continued to think. He turned his attention to biology. Specifically, he became fascinated by how patterns form in nature. Why do zebras have stripes? Why do leopards have spots? How does complexity emerge from simple rules? In 1952, the same year he was prosecuted, Turing published a paper on morphogenesis, the mathematical study of pattern formation in biological systems. He proposed that chemical reactions could explain the development of complex structures in living organisms. This work would later influence fields ranging from developmental biology to artificial life. Even as the world was dismantling him, his mind was still building futures. But genius does not make a person indestructible. On June 7, 1954, Alan Turing was found dead in his home. He was 41 years old. The official cause of death was cyanide poisoning. An apple found near his bed was suspected to be laced with poison. Whether his death was suicide or an accident remains debated. What is not debated is this: Alan Turing was exhausted, emotionally, psychologically, existentially. He had been punished not for harming anyone, but for being himself. For years after his death, Turing's contributions remained classified. His name faded. Others received credit for ideas he had originated. The digital world he helped create grew rapidly, but without acknowledging its architect. Civilization moved forward. Alan Turing was left behind. When Alan Turing died in 1954, the world did not stop. Computers continued to evolve. Machines became faster, smaller, more powerful. New names entered the history books. New heroes were celebrated. And yet beneath nearly every major development in computing, Alan Turing's fingerprints remained, unseen, uncredited, but foundational. This is one of the great ironies of modern civilization. We live inside a world Turing predicted, designed, and philosophically mapped out. Yet for decades, we barely spoke his name. At the heart of Turing's legacy is a simple but devastating idea. Computation is universal. Before Turing, machines were built for specific purposes. A calculator calculated. A loom weaved. A telephone transmitted voices. Turing showed that with the right instructions, a single machine could simulate any of these processes. Hardware became secondary. Software became everything. This shift changed human history. The smartphone in your pocket, the servers powering global finance, the algorithms shaping your social media feed, all are descendants of the same conceptual device Turing described in 1936. But Turing went further. He did not see computation as limited to numbers. He saw it as a model for thought itself. The question, can machines think, was not a technological challenge. It was a philosophical grenade. By proposing the Turing test, he reframed intelligence as behavior rather than essence. Instead of asking whether a machine had a soul or consciousness, he asked whether it could function intelligently in interaction with humans. This was revolutionary. Turing understood that intelligence, as humans experience it, is not something we directly observe. We infer it through language, response, adaptation, and learning. If a machine could do these things convincingly, then denying its intelligence would be arbitrary. Modern AI still operates within this framework. Chatbots, virtual assistants, recommendation systems, all are judged not by their internal states, but by how effectively they interact with us. Every debate about whether AI is really intelligent is, in essence, a continuation of Turing's argument. What makes Turing's vision remarkable is not that he predicted technology. It is that he predicted us. He foresaw a future where humans would form emotional relationships with machines, where trust, deception, and persuasion would exist between biological and artificial minds, where the line between tool and collaborator would blur. He even predicted objections. Turing systematically addressed arguments against machine intelligence decades before they became popular. He responded to claims about creativity, consciousness, emotions, and morality, often with chilling clarity. Again and again, his conclusion was the same. The question is not whether machines can think, but whether humans are willing to accept new forms of thinking. Yet Turing's life forces us to confront a darker truth. A society capable of producing revolutionary intelligence is not necessarily capable of protecting it. The same civilization that benefited from Turing's ideas lacked the moral framework to defend his humanity. This contradiction remains unresolved. In the decades following his death, Turing's name slowly resurfaced. As documents were declassified, historians began to understand the true scale of his wartime contributions. Mathematicians revisited his early papers and realized how much had been built on his work. In 1966, the Turing Award was established, the highest honor in computer science. It was named after him, but by then he had been dead for 12 years. Public recognition came even later. In 2009, after years of advocacy, the British government issued an official apology for Turing's treatment. The Prime Minister acknowledged that he had been terribly treated. In 2013, Turing received a royal pardon. These gestures were symbolic. They did not return the years taken from him. They did not erase the suffering. They did not undo the loss. They simply acknowledged what had already happened. Alan Turing's story forces a question that remains uncomfortably relevant. How many minds like his are being ignored, marginalized, or destroyed right now? Not because they lack talent, but because they do not conform. Innovation does not emerge from comfort. It emerges from difference. Turing's tragedy was not that he was too strange for his time. It was that his time was too small for him. Today, as artificial intelligence accelerates at an unprecedented pace, Turing's ideas are no longer theoretical. They are operational. They shape how decisions are made, how information flows, and how power is distributed. We are living inside Turing's thought experiment. And with that comes responsibility. If machines begin to resemble human intelligence, then the values we embed in them matter. If algorithms shape lives, then ethics cannot remain an afterthought. Turing understood this implicitly. He never separated intelligence from accountability. Alan Turing did not just ask what machines could become. He asked what humans would become in response. That question is still unanswered. To truly understand Alan Turing, you have to step away from the grand theories and world-changing achievements and look at the small, almost absurd details of his daily life. Because Turing was not the kind of genius who felt distant or divine. He was deeply human, awkward, obsessive, funny in the unexpected ways. And it was precisely these traits that made his mind work the way it did. Turing had little patience for social rituals. Politeness, small talk, and unspoken rules felt inefficient to him. If someone said something incorrect, he corrected them immediately, regardless of rank or context. This earned him a reputation for rudeness, even though he was not intentionally unkind. In reality, Turing simply did not see the value in pretending. Truth mattered more than comfort. This trait extended to his work. When colleagues presented ideas built on shaky assumptions, Turing dismantled them calmly and thoroughly. He did not argue emotionally. He argued structurally. Many found this intimidating. Some found it humiliating. Very few could keep up. Turing was famously absent-minded. He would forget everyday objects, misplace important documents, and arrive late without explanation. At one point, worried about his bicycle being stolen, he chained it to a lamppost and then forgot which lamppost. On another occasion, he secured his tea mug with a padlock to prevent co-workers from using it. These stories sound humorous, but they reveal something deeper. Turing's attention was not divided, it was consumed. When his mind focused on a problem, the external world faded. Time became irrelevant. Physical needs became secondary. This intense absorption allowed him to see connections others missed, but it came at the cost of practical functioning. His relationship with machines was unusually intimate. Turing trusted machines more than people, not because machines were smarter, but because they were honest. A machine followed rules. It did not manipulate. It did not perform social theater. It did exactly what it was instructed to do, and if it failed, the failure was logical. This perspective deeply influenced his philosophy of intelligence. To Turing, thinking was not mystical. It was procedural. Complex behavior emerged from simple steps repeated at scale. Humans, in this view, were not sacred exceptions. They were biological machines governed by physical laws. This belief disturbed many people. But for Turing, it was not dehumanizing. It was clarifying. Turing was also a long-distance runner of remarkable ability. At one point, he was nearly selected for Britain's Olympic marathon team. He often ran over 10 miles a day, sometimes using running as a way to think through problems. While others used desks and blackboards, Turing used motion. Running gave him rhythm. Breathing gave him structure. Movement gave his thoughts space to unfold. There is something revealing about this. Even Turing's physical habits mirrored his intellectual ones, repetitive, systematic, and enduring. Despite his intellectual dominance, Turing was emotionally vulnerable. He formed deep attachments, but struggled to maintain them. His directness, combined with his inability to read social cues, often created distance. He wanted connection, but did not know how to perform it. His relationship with Christopher Morcom remained the emotional center of his life. Years after Morcom's death, Turing still spoke of him with reverence. He wrote about the possibility that the human mind could continue in some form after death, not through religion, but through information. This idea foreshadowed modern discussions of digital consciousness. Turing's sense of humor was dry, often bizarre. He enjoyed wordplay, logical paradoxes, and jokes that hinged on unexpected interpretations. He laughed at systems collapsing under their own contradictions. He found joy in proving things impossible. In many ways, humor was his way of coping with a world that constantly misunderstood him. Perhaps the most misunderstood aspect of Turing's personality was his honesty. He did not lie easily. When questioned by police about his private life, he did not attempt to evade. He did not fabricate excuses. He simply told the truth, assuming rationality would protect him. This assumption cost him everything, but it also reveals his moral core. Turing believed that truth mattered more than safety. In modern terms, many historians believe Turing would likely be described as neurodivergent. He exhibited traits consistent with autism: difficulty with social norms, intense focus, literal thinking, and sensory sensitivity. But labels are secondary. What matters is this: Turing's mind did not malfunction. It operated under a different optimization. He was not built for social survival. He was built for discovery. When society evaluates genius, it often focuses on outcomes: what was invented, what was achieved, what was produced. But genius is also a way of being. Alan Turing's way of being was incompatible with the expectations of his time, and that incompatibility proved fatal. Alan Turing did not live to see the world catch up to him, but the world did catch up. And when it did, it discovered that the questions he asked were not abstract curiosities, they were warnings. In the early decades of computing, machines were obedient tools. They followed instructions. They executed commands. They did exactly what programmers told them to do, nothing more. For a time, this made Turing's ideas about machine intelligence feel distant and philosophical. That distance is gone. Modern artificial intelligence systems learn. They adapt. They optimize. They generate language, images, strategies, and decisions that even their creators cannot fully predict. The question, can machines think, has evolved into something more uncomfortable. What happens when machines influence human thinking? Turing anticipated this shift. One of Turing's most overlooked insights was that intelligence does not require consciousness. This idea remains controversial, but it is central to modern AI. Turing argued that intelligence should be defined by function, not inner experience. A system does not need feelings to behave intelligently. It does not need self-awareness to solve problems. It only needs the ability to process information, evaluate outcomes, and adapt behavior. This is exactly how modern AI operates. It does not understand meaning the way humans do. It does not feel emotion, and yet it produces results that feel intelligent. This creates a psychological illusion, one Turing predicted. Humans naturally attribute intention and personality to anything that behaves coherently. We anthropomorphize. We trust. We emotionally engage. Turing understood that this tendency would blur boundaries between human and machine long before such machines existed. The Turing test was never meant to be a definitive measure of intelligence. It was a mirror. It forced humans to confront their own assumptions about thinking. If you cannot distinguish between a human and a machine through conversation alone, then what does that say about your definition of intelligence? The discomfort people feel toward AI today is not about machines, it is about ourselves. Turing also understood the political implications of intelligent machines. Information is power. Computation amplifies power. Automation concentrates power. Who controls the machines? Who designs their rules? Who benefits from their decisions? These questions were barely discussed in Turing's time. Today, they define global debates about surveillance, bias, labor, warfare, and democracy. Turing did not provide easy answers, but he made it impossible to ignore the questions. Another overlooked fact: Turing believed that machine intelligence would force humans to redefine morality. If a machine can reason, plan, and adapt, then responsibility becomes complex. When an algorithm causes harm, who is accountable? The programmer, the operator, the institution, or the system itself? Turing suspected that future societies would struggle with this ambiguity. They are. There is a tragic symmetry here. Alan Turing was punished because society lacked the moral framework to accept difference. Now society struggles to build machines without repeating that failure, creating systems that exclude, discriminate, or harm those who do not fit predefined categories. Bias in algorithms is not a technical problem alone. It is a human one. Turing's life also raises uncomfortable ethical parallels. He was surveilled. He was judged by rigid legal systems. He was reduced to a risk profile. He was denied agency. These are the same mechanisms now being automated. Predictive policing, risk assessment algorithms, automated decision systems. The tools change, the patterns remain. Perhaps the most haunting part of Turing's legacy is this: he understood that intelligence without empathy is dangerous. But empathy without understanding is equally dangerous. The persecution he suffered was not driven by hatred alone. It was driven by ignorance, fear, and unexamined norms. These forces, when encoded into systems, scale rapidly. Turing never framed his work as neutral. He knew technology reflects values. In recent years, Alan Turing has become a symbol of genius, a symbol of injustice, a symbol of lost potential. But reducing him to a symbol risks missing the lesson. Turing was not extraordinary because he was flawless. He was extraordinary because he was honest. He followed questions wherever they led, even when the answers were uncomfortable, even when the cost was high. As machines grow more capable, Turing's central question returns with new urgency. Not, can machines think? But, can humans think clearly about machines? By the early 1950s, Alan Turing's world had narrowed, not because his ideas had run out, but because society had quietly closed its doors around him. After his conviction, Turing was no longer trusted by the state he had once protected. His security clearance was revoked. He was barred from cryptographic work. Entire areas of research were suddenly inaccessible to him, not because he lacked ability, but because he no longer fit the moral image the government demanded. This was a profound psychological blow. For Turing, work was not just a career. It was identity. It was purpose. It was how he made sense of existence. To be told, implicitly, that his mind was now a liability rather than an asset was devastating. And yet, he did not stop thinking. Stripped of institutional power, Turing retreated into pure inquiry. He turned toward questions that required no clearance, no approval, no permission, questions about life itself. This is where his work on morphogenesis becomes especially important, not only scientifically, but emotionally. Turing was asking how order emerges from chaos, how simple chemical rules could generate complex biological patterns, how structure appears without design, how beauty forms without intention. These were not random interests. They reflected his own life. Turing had experienced how rigid systems crush anything that deviates from their expectations. In biology, he found the opposite. Systems where variation was not punished, but necessary, where difference created form. In a quiet way, this was Turing's rebellion. Despite the humiliation he endured, Turing did not express bitterness publicly. There are no recorded speeches condemning the government, no public denunciations, no dramatic final statements. This absence is often misunderstood as emotional withdrawal. In reality, it reflects something deeper. Turing did not think in terms of vengeance. He thought in terms of systems. He understood that his suffering was not the result of individual cruelty alone, but of structures, laws, norms, assumptions that operated without reflection. Fighting individuals would change nothing. Only understanding the system mattered. This perspective gave him clarity, but it also isolated him. Privately, however, friends noticed signs of strain. The hormone treatments affected his body and mood. His energy fluctuated. His confidence wavered. The physical changes reminded him daily that the state had asserted control over his most intimate self. For someone who valued autonomy above all else, this was a deep violation. Still, Turing continued to work, run, and think. Running remained one of his anchors. The rhythm of footsteps, the predictability of breath, the quiet solitude. These were stabilizing forces in a life that had become unstable. Motion, for Turing, was a form of control. The circumstances of Turing's death remain debated, and perhaps they always will. The image of the poisoned apple has become iconic, partly because it feels symbolic, an echo of fairy tales, temptation, and knowledge. But focusing too much on symbolism risks obscuring the truth. What matters is not how Alan Turing died. What matters is how tired he was. He had spent his life pushing against the limits of understanding, mathematical, philosophical, and social. He had lived honestly in a world that punished honesty. He had given more than he was ever allowed to receive. Whether his death was intentional or accidental, it occurred in a context of profound exhaustion, mental exhaustion, emotional exhaustion, existential exhaustion. It is tempting to frame Turing's story as a simple tragedy, genius destroyed by intolerance. But that framing is incomplete. Alan Turing was not merely destroyed, he was extracted. Society took what it needed from him and discarded the rest. His ideas were preserved. His humanity was not. This pattern repeats throughout history. Visionaries are celebrated for their outputs, not protected for their vulnerability. Their suffering is often reframed as the cost of brilliance rather than the cost of injustice. Turing's life exposes the cruelty of that narrative. There is another uncomfortable truth. Alan Turing was not unique. He was exceptional, yes, but the mechanisms that crushed him are common. Legal systems that lag behind understanding, cultural norms enforced without empathy, institutions that reward conformity over insight. Turing's story resonates because it is not finished. In recent decades, attempts have been made to restore his legacy. Buildings named after him, awards bearing his name, films, books, and public apologies. These acts matter, but they are insufficient. Recognition after death does not equal justice. The true measure of honoring Turing is not in statues or ceremonies. It is in how society treats difference now. As we stand in an era shaped by artificial intelligence, an era that traces directly back to Turing's ideas, we face a choice. We can build systems that replicate the same rigid judgments that destroyed him, or we can build systems that reflect the empathy he was denied. Turing showed us how intelligence works. He never stopped believing that humans could learn to do better. Alan Turing never wrote a memoir. He never tried to control his legacy. He never demanded recognition. He never asked to be remembered. And yet, few individuals have left behind a question so large that it continues to shape the future. That question is not about machines. It is about us. When people talk about Alan Turing today, they often focus on two extremes: the brilliant mathematician or the tragic victim. Both are true, but neither is sufficient on its own. Turing's real legacy lies in the tension between them. He proved that intelligence can exist outside familiar forms, and then became a living example of what happens when society refuses to accept unfamiliar intelligence. This symmetry is not accidental. Turing understood something deeply unsettling. Progress does not require cruelty, but cruelty often accompanies progress, not because it is necessary, but because systems evolve faster than ethics. Technology accelerates. Institutions lag. Human understanding struggles to keep up. Turing lived inside that gap. One of the most uncomfortable facts about Turing's story is how ordinary his persecution was. There was no secret tribunal, no dramatic purge, no extraordinary villain. Just laws, procedures, and social norms, doing exactly what they were designed to do. This is what makes his case so dangerous to ignore. If injustice only came from monsters, it would be easy to prevent. But Turing was destroyed by normality, by people following rules, without questioning whether those rules made sense. This is the same risk that accompanies automation today. Modern systems are increasingly designed to remove human judgment. Algorithms decide who gets loans. Models determine who is flagged as a risk. Automated tools influence hiring, sentencing, and access to opportunity. Efficiency increases. Empathy disappears. Turing warned us implicitly about this trade-off. A system can be logically consistent and morally catastrophic at the same time. Turing's life also challenges how we define contribution. He saved millions of lives. He reshaped civilization. And still, he was deemed unacceptable. What does that say about the values we prioritize? Would Turing survive in today's world? It is an uncomfortable question. We like to believe we have progressed, and in many ways, we have. Laws have changed. Attitudes have shifted. Recognition has grown. But systems still punish difference. They simply do it more quietly. Another rarely discussed fact: Turing never framed himself as a hero. He did not see his wartime work as moral superiority. He saw it as problem-solving. This humility is part of what made him dangerous to rigid hierarchies. He did not believe intelligence entitled someone to power. He believed it created responsibility. This is a lesson modern technologists often forget. Turing also rejected the idea of final answers. He believed knowledge was provisional, that systems must remain open to revision. That certainty was often the enemy of understanding. This mindset is essential today. As AI systems become more complex, the temptation to treat their outputs as objective truth grows. But Turing would remind us, every system reflects its assumptions. Unquestioned assumptions create invisible harm. Perhaps the most haunting aspect of Turing's story is that his suffering was unnecessary, not inevitable, not tragic fate, but preventable. All it would have taken was empathy, or curiosity, or restraint. Instead, society chose punishment. In this sense, Alan Turing's life functions as a stress test for civilization. When confronted with brilliance that challenges norms, do we adapt or do we retaliate? When confronted with difference, do we learn or do we legislate? When confronted with truth, do we listen or do we silence? We now live in a world shaped by Turing's ideas. Machines think, not like humans, but alongside them. Intelligence is no longer rare. It is scalable, and that makes the ethical stakes higher than ever. The danger is not that machines will become too human. The danger is that humans will become too machine-like, rigid, unquestioning, efficient without compassion. Alan Turing did not leave behind commandments. He left behind a responsibility to think carefully, to question systems, to protect difference, to value truth over comfort. The future he helped create is now in our hands. When historians look back at turning points in human history, they often focus on wars, revolutions, or inventions. But sometimes the most important turning point is a person, not because of what they conquered, but because of what they revealed. Alan Turing revealed a future before the world was ready to see it. And when the future finally arrived, it looked disturbingly like him. Turing's life sits at the intersection of three forces that now define modern civilization: computation, identity, and power. He helped create machines that process information faster than any human could. He embodied an identity that society refused to accept. And he lived under institutions that exercised power without understanding. These forces did not end with him. They intensified. The digital age did not just change technology. It changed how value is measured. In Turing's time, intelligence was still primarily human, rare, difficult to scale, tied to individuals. Today, intelligence is embedded in systems, replicable, deployable, everywhere. This shift raises a critical question Turing anticipated. If intelligence is no longer special, what becomes special? The answer, increasingly, is judgment. And judgment is not something machines possess. Turing never believed that intelligence alone was enough. He understood that reasoning without context could be dangerous, that logic without values could justify anything, that systems optimized for efficiency could easily produce cruelty. This is why his persecution matters so much today. Turing was evaluated by a system that optimized for moral conformity, not human dignity. The system worked as designed and produced injustice as output. Modern systems risk doing the same. There is another uncomfortable parallel. Alan Turing's work was classified for national security. Knowledge was controlled. Information was restricted. Power was centralized. Decisions were made behind closed doors. Today, algorithmic systems operate in similar opacity. We rely on them. We benefit from them. But we often do not understand them. Turing believed deeply in transparency. He wanted systems that could be examined, questioned, and improved. He knew that hidden logic breeds abuse. This belief stands in direct contrast to many modern technologies. Turing's legacy also challenges the myth of technological neutrality. Tools are not neutral. Systems are not objective. Algorithms are not impartial. They encode priorities. The question is not whether values exist in technology, but whose values are embedded and who bears the consequences. Turing bore the consequences of values he did not choose. There is a quiet irony in how Turing is remembered today. He is celebrated as a father of artificial intelligence, but his most important contribution may have been ethical, not technical. He forced humanity to confront what intelligence really means and who gets to define it. He showed that brilliance does not guarantee safety, That contribution does not guarantee protection. That progress does not guarantee justice. Perhaps the most powerful fact about Alan Turing is this: he did not need to be punished for history to move forward. History could have advanced with him. The loss was not inevitable. It was a choice. This realization carries weight, because if Turing's destruction was a choice, then so is our future. As AI systems grow more influential, society faces decisions that echo those made in Turing's lifetime. Will we value conformity or creativity? Will we reward obedience or insight? Will we protect those who challenge systems or silence them? These are not abstract questions. They are design decisions. Alan Turing once wrote that we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. This was not pessimism. It was responsibility. He knew the future would not be solved by certainty, but by humility. Turing's story endures because it resists closure. There is no clean ending, no satisfying resolution, no moral victory. There is only a warning and an invitation. The warning, intelligence without compassion destroys. The invitation, understanding can still catch up. When people ask why Alan Turing matters, they often expect a technological answer. Because he invented the foundations of computing. Because he helped win World War II. Because he imagined artificial intelligence before anyone else. All of that is true, but it is not the most important thing he gave us. Alan Turing gave humanity a mirror, not a flattering one, an honest one. Through his life, his work, and his suffering, he revealed how civilizations treat intelligence, difference, and truth when those things become inconvenient. And what we see in that mirror is unsettling. Turing proved that intelligence does not announce itself politely. It disrupts. It questions. It refuses to conform. Societies like to celebrate genius after it becomes safe, after it can be packaged, simplified, and stripped of its challenge. But while genius is alive, it is often treated as a threat. Turing experienced this firsthand. He was useful when his mind served national survival. He was disposable when his identity challenged social norms. This pattern is not accidental. It is systemic. One of the most important facts about Alan Turing is that his tragedy was not caused by ignorance alone, but by certainty. The certainty that morality was settled. The certainty that difference was dangerous. The certainty that systems did not need to change. Turing questioned certainty wherever he found it. In mathematics, in logic, in philosophy, in life, and certainty punished him for it. This is why his story matters more now than ever. We are building systems that operate at scales no individual can fully understand. We are delegating judgment to machines. We are trusting models to decide what is true, valuable, or risky. In doing so, we risk repeating the same mistake that destroyed Turing, confusing system output with moral truth. Alan Turing understood that intelligence is not wisdom. A system can be correct and still be wrong. It can be efficient and still be cruel. It can be logical and still be unjust. This applies to governments. It applies to algorithms. It applies to societies. Another overlooked truth: Turing did not ask to be exceptional. He did not seek martyrdom. He did not pursue rebellion. He simply refused to live dishonestly. That refusal cost him his career, his dignity, and possibly his life. This raises a question far more uncomfortable than any technical debate about AI. What kind of world punishes honesty? When we remember Alan Turing, we often focus on what he lost: his career, his freedom, his life. But we rarely talk about what we lost. We lost decades of insight. We lost a guiding ethical voice at the birth of the digital age. We lost a mind that understood both the power and the danger of intelligence. The digital world grew anyway, but without his restraint. And yet, Turing's influence did not vanish. It persisted quietly. in every discussion about machine intelligence, in every debate about algorithmic fairness, in every warning about automation without accountability. His questions survived him. There is a final, haunting irony in Alan Turing's story. He helped create machines that can imitate human conversation. And decades later, humanity is still struggling to imitate his clarity, courage, and honesty. Turing once suggested that instead of asking whether machines can think, we should ask whether humans are willing to change their definitions. This applies far beyond machines. Are we willing to change how we define normal? How we define morality? How we define value? Or will we continue to punish what we do not understand? Alan Turing does not belong to history alone. He belongs to the present. Every time we design a system, write a law, or enforce a norm, we answer his question, whether we realize it or not. Will intelligence be guided by empathy? Will power be checked by humility? Will difference be protected or erased? Turing's life ended quietly, but his challenge did not. And perhaps that is his greatest legacy. Not a machine, not an equation, not an award, but a responsibility. To think carefully, to question relentlessly, to build systems that serve humans, all humans. Alan Turing's story does not end with his death. It ends with a choice that keeps repeating, a choice that every generation inherits, whether it realizes it or not. History often treats progress as inevitable, as if computers would have existed anyway, as if artificial intelligence would have emerged regardless, as if someone else would have done what Turing did. This way of thinking is comforting, and it is wrong. Progress is not inevitable. It is contingent. It depends on whether societies recognize, protect, and nurture the minds that challenge them. Alan Turing was one of those minds, and society failed him. One of the most important facts about Turing is not what he achieved, but what he could have achieved. He died at 41, at an age when most scientists are just beginning their most productive years. What questions would he have asked about learning machines? What warnings would he have raised about automation and power? What ethical frameworks might he have proposed at the dawn of the digital age? We will never know, and that absence matters. Turing's death created a silence at a critical moment. The computer age accelerated without one of its clearest thinkers. Technology raced ahead, while ethics lagged behind. Systems were built for efficiency, not reflection. Scale replaced wisdom. This imbalance defines the modern world, and it traces directly back to the loss of voices like his. There is another uncomfortable truth. Alan Turing was not destroyed because he was dangerous. He was destroyed because he was inconvenient. He did not fit neatly into categories. He did not perform normality convincingly. He did not hide what society wanted hidden. Inconvenience is often treated as threat, and threats are neutralized. This pattern extends far beyond Turing. Throughout history, societies have struggled with people who see differently. Sometimes those people are celebrated. Often they are isolated, dismissed, or punished, especially when their difference exposes flaws in the system itself. Turing exposed many flaws in logic, in morality, in law, in human self-image, and the system responded the only way it knew how. Today we face a mirror image of that moment. We are building systems that increasingly define what is normal, acceptable, and valuable. Algorithms decide what content is visible. Models decide who is risky. Data decides who belongs. The danger is not that these systems will become evil. The danger is that they will become unquestioned. Turing's life teaches us what happens when systems are obeyed instead of examined. Remembering Alan Turing is not about guilt. It is about responsibility. We cannot change what happened to him, but we can decide what happens next. We can choose to design systems that allow dissent. We can choose to protect those who think differently. We can choose to treat intelligence as something that demands care, not control. Or we can repeat history, faster, cleaner, and at a larger scale. There is a final lesson in how Turing lived. Despite everything, misunderstanding, isolation, punishment, he never abandoned truth. He never reshaped himself to fit expectations. He never pretended to be someone else to gain safety. That kind of integrity is rare, and it is fragile. It survives only in societies that value it. Alan Turing once wrote that we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. That sentence is not a conclusion. It is a challenge. The world he helped create is now filled with thinking machines. What it still lacks is enough thinking humans. Humans willing to question systems. Humans willing to defend difference. Humans willing to slow down progress long enough to ask whether it is just. Alan Turing does not ask to be admired. He asks to be understood. And understanding him leads to a final, unavoidable realization. The future of intelligence was never just about machines. It was always about how humans treat those who think differently. That choice is still ours. Even now, decades after his death, Alan Turing unsettles people, not because of what he did, but because of what his life exposes. Turing forces us to confront a truth that modern societies prefer to avoid. Intelligence does not automatically align with social order, moral consensus, or institutional comfort. In fact, truly transformative intelligence often collides with all three. This collision is the core of Turing's discomforting legacy. We like to believe that if someone contributes enough, if they save lives, advance knowledge, or change history, they will be protected. Turing disproves that belief. Contribution does not guarantee belonging. Excellence does not guarantee safety. Genius does not guarantee mercy. These assumptions are myths. Societies tell themselves to avoid responsibility. What makes Turing's story particularly unsettling is how rational everything appeared at the time. The laws were legal. The procedures were proper. The punishment was authorized. Nothing went wrong in the mechanical sense. And yet, everything went wrong morally. This distinction matters deeply in the age of algorithms. A system can function perfectly and still be unjust. Turing lived and suffered inside such a system. Another reason Turing remains uncomfortable is that he refuses to be simplified. He cannot be reduced to a single identity. He was not just a mathematician, not just a wartime hero, not just a victim of injustice, not just a symbol of LGBTQ+ history. He was all of these at once, and complexity makes people uneasy. Societies prefer heroes who fit neatly into narratives. Turing does not cooperate. His life forces contradictions into the open. Turing also challenges the romanticized image of genius. He was not charming. He was not socially skilled. He was not emotionally easy. He did not inspire through charisma. He inspired through clarity. This matters because many modern systems, educational, corporate, cultural, reward performance over substance. Those who communicate smoothly are often favored over those who think deeply. Turing was the opposite, and the system punished him for it. There is another uncomfortable parallel. Alan Turing trusted institutions. He trusted the police enough to tell the truth. He trusted the law enough to expect fairness. He trusted rationality enough to believe evidence mattered. That trust was betrayed. This raises a troubling question for modern society. Who is punished today for trusting systems that do not deserve trust? Turing's discomfort also comes from timing. He lived just early enough to be essential, and just early enough to be disposable. The digital world needed his ideas, but it did not yet need his voice. By the time society realized what it had lost, it was too late. This pattern continues. Visionaries are often celebrated only after their warnings are ignored. Perhaps the most disturbing fact is this. If Alan Turing were alive today, there is no guarantee he would be safe. He would still be unconventional, still direct, still uninterested in social performance, still difficult to categorize. The mechanisms may be more subtle now, but exclusion has not vanished. It has become procedural. Turing's story makes us uncomfortable because it removes easy villains. There was no single person to blame, only a culture, a system, a consensus. This makes accountability harder, and therefore more urgent. In remembering Alan Turing, the temptation is to close the story, to say, "We have learned," to say, "Things are better now," to say, "This could not happen again." History suggests otherwise. Progress does not immunize societies against moral failure. It only changes the form it takes. Alan Turing remains uncomfortable because his life demands vigilance. Vigilance against systems that value order over humanity. Vigilance against efficiency without empathy. Vigilance against certainty that refuses to listen. He does not let us rest. In recent years, Alan Turing has finally entered popular memory. His face appears on banknotes. His name is taught in schools. His life is dramatized in films and documentaries. On the surface, this looks like justice delayed, but delivered. In reality, something important is still missing. Modern retellings of Turing's story often follow a familiar pattern. They celebrate the genius. They condemn the injustice. They offer a sense of closure. But closure is precisely what Turing's life does not allow. Because the most important lesson of his story is not comfortable, inspiring, or cinematic. It is unresolved. Popular portrayals tend to soften Turing. They make him eccentric but endearing, awkward but lovable, misunderstood but ultimately affirmed by history. This version of Turing is easier to accept, but it is also safer and less truthful. The real Alan Turing was not easy to work with. He was not socially accommodating. He did not adapt himself to be understood. And that is exactly why he mattered. By smoothing out his edges, we risk misunderstanding the source of his persecution. Turing was not punished simply because he was gay. He was punished because he did not hide. He did not perform remorse. He did not pretend to be normal. He did not negotiate with hypocrisy. That refusal made him dangerous. There is a deeper problem with how we remember Turing. We frame his story as an exception, a tragic anomaly, a mistake of the past, a lesson already learned. But history rarely works that way. Turing was not an exception. He was a warning. When societies memorialize figures like Turing, they often focus on symbolic repair. Apologies, pardons, monuments. These gestures matter, but they are retrospective. They correct the image of the past, not the structure of the present. The question is not whether we honor Turing now. The question is whether we would protect him then, and whether we protect his equivalents today. There is another subtle distortion in modern retellings. They separate Turing's ideas from his identity. His intelligence is praised. His difference is lamented. But the two are treated as unrelated. In reality, they were inseparable. The same mind that questioned mathematical certainty also questioned social certainty. The same clarity that dismantled logical assumptions also exposed moral contradictions. Turing's difference was not a flaw to be tolerated. It was the source of his insight. This matters deeply in the modern world. We say we value diversity, but often only when it is comfortable. When difference challenges systems instead of enriching them aesthetically, tolerance evaporates. Turing challenged systems, so he was removed. There is also a tendency to mythologize Turing as lonely and tragic. While there is truth there, it obscures another reality. Turing experienced joy. He enjoyed solving problems. He enjoyed running. He enjoyed humor and curiosity. He enjoyed thinking freely. Reducing him to suffering alone diminishes his humanity. His life was not only a warning, it was also proof of what human thought can be at its best: playful, fearless, and unrestrained by convention. The danger of incomplete remembrance is repetition. If we remember Turing only as a victim, we miss the systems that made him one. If we remember him only as a genius, we miss the cost of ignoring his warnings. If we remember him only as history, we miss his relevance. Alan Turing does not belong to museums. He belongs in design rooms, policy discussions, ethics debates, education systems, anywhere decisions are made about intelligence, difference, and power. The real tragedy is not that Alan Turing died misunderstood. It is that many of the conditions that destroyed him still exist, just better disguised. They operate through metrics instead of morality, through optimization instead of judgment, through procedure instead of empathy. Remembering Turing properly means resisting the urge to conclude. His story does not end in redemption. It ends in responsibility. Alan Turing's life was not a story with a neat ending. It was a test, a challenge, a question posed to every generation that follows him. And that question is deceptively simple. What will you do with intelligence that challenges your systems, your norms, and your assumptions? Turing's genius forced society to confront three uncomfortable realities. Intelligence is not obedient. Difference is not negotiable. Truth often conflicts with comfort. He embodied all three, and he paid the price. Today, the test is no longer about a single individual. It is about systems, institutions, and technologies that increasingly operate beyond our direct control. We are surrounded by intelligence that we do not fully understand. Algorithms influence lives in ways humans cannot always predict. Artificial intelligence is shaping economies, politics, and social norms. Power is concentrated in entities that control data and models. And yet, society often behaves as if obedience and conformity will safeguard us. Turing's life warns us they will not. The test is also ethical. It asks, will we prioritize efficiency over empathy? Will we prioritize order over truth? Will we protect those who challenge the system or silence them? These are not hypothetical questions. They are the ones we face every day. Alan Turing himself embodied the solution. He combined brilliance with honesty. He challenged assumptions without cruelty. He embraced difference without compromise. He pursued truth without fear. Yet society rejected him. The question for us is whether we can do better. Modern AI, big data, and digital systems amplify the stakes of Turing's warning. A single error, bias, or oversight can scale globally. A system that values conformity or efficiency over humanity can cause harm unimaginable in Turing's time. And we are responsible for designing those systems because, unlike Turing, they do not possess ethics, judgment, or empathy. In other words, Turing's life is not merely historical. It is instructional. Remember this: Turing was not only a mathematician or a codebreaker. He was a human mind that consistently demanded clarity, integrity, and courage. He tested the limits of what society could tolerate. He questioned assumptions before anyone else even realized they existed. And in doing so, he left humanity a mirror. Do we value intelligence only when it is convenient? Do we punish difference even when it produces progress? Do we honor truth only when it aligns with our comfort? Turing's genius, courage, and tragedy converge in a single, persistent lesson. Intelligence alone is not enough. Ethics, empathy, and protection for those who think differently are equally crucial. Fail to uphold these, and we risk repeating the past at a scale Turing never experienced, but surely foresaw. Every time a machine makes a decision, every time society labels someone as inconvenient, every time efficiency trumps morality, Turing's life asks, have you passed the test? There is no automatic passing grade. There is only choice. Alan Turing's story is open-ended. It does not conclude with justice, recognition, or apology. It concludes with responsibility. And that responsibility is not optional. It is ongoing. It is structural. It is moral. Turing's legacy is not a monument. It is a question, a challenge, a call to action. And the stark truth is this: we will either rise to meet it, or history will quietly repeat itself at a larger scale, with more intelligence, and with fewer humans who truly understand it. Alan Turing's life, taken as a whole, is both extraordinary and ordinary. Extraordinary in the ideas he generated, the questions he asked, and the systems he imagined long before anyone else. Ordinary in the sense that he was a human being, flawed, vulnerable, funny, awkward, and deeply emotional. Understanding him fully requires holding these two truths simultaneously. Turing's genius reshaped the world. He showed that machines could compute anything a human could, laying the foundation for modern computers. He created the Turing test, reframing intelligence as behavior, not essence. He broke codes that shortened a devastating war, saving millions of lives. He pioneered theoretical biology, exploring how patterns form in nature. These are tangible accomplishments, measurable outputs. Yet the most important lessons lie not in the results, but in the way he lived. He refused to conceal his difference. He pursued truth, even when it endangered him. He approached problems with clarity, rigor, and curiosity. He saw systems for what they were and refused to submit to injustice. This combination of intellectual brilliance and moral courage is rare, and it is precisely why his story still challenges us today. Turing's persecution underscores a painful truth. Societies often fail the very individuals who most advance them. Brilliance can be useful, and therefore tolerated, but only up to a point. Difference can be valued, but only if it does not disrupt comfort. Truth can be celebrated, but only when convenient. Turing exceeded every limit society was willing to accept, and for that, he was punished. Even as recognition of his contributions has grown, the full weight of his story has yet to be absorbed. The Turing Award, apologies, monuments, and films honor his intellect, but they cannot restore the human dignity he lost. They cannot return the years stolen from him. They cannot replace the wisdom he might have offered in the decades after his death. This absence remains one of history's most haunting lessons. In the modern age, Turing's questions resonate more than ever. Intelligence is no longer scarce. It is everywhere. Machines think in ways humans cannot fully comprehend. Algorithms influence justice, health, commerce, and social behavior. And society still struggles with difference, ethics, and accountability. The stakes are higher than they were in Turing's lifetime. Alan Turing's life challenges every human to ask, how do we treat those who think differently? How do we structure systems that value ethics alongside efficiency? How do we ensure intelligence, artificial or human, serves humanity, rather than the other way around? These are not theoretical questions. They are urgent. They are structural. They are moral. Perhaps the most enduring truth of Alan Turing's life is this: brilliance alone is not enough. Courage alone is not enough. Intelligence alone is not enough. What is required is integrity, empathy, and the protection of difference. Fail in these, and the lessons of history repeat. Succeed in these, and Turing's vision, a world shaped by intelligence guided by wisdom, becomes possible. Remembering Alan Turing is not about celebrating a past hero. It is about confronting the present. It is about asking ourselves difficult questions. It is about making deliberate choices every day in technology, society, and ethics. He did not leave commandments. He left a challenge. And that challenge is still active. Alan Turing's life and work is a mirror. It shows us what humans can create and what humans can destroy. It shows us the power of the mind and the fragility of morality. It shows us the possibilities of the future and the responsibilities that come with them. To honor Alan Turing fully is not merely to remember him, it is to live his lessons, to question assumptions, protect difference, pursue truth, and build systems that reflect both intelligence and humanity. The world he imagined exists. Whether it is just, ethical, and humane depends on us. And that is the final, enduring fact. Alan Turing's life does not end in history. It lives in the choices we make every day.